What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are breaking down UCF Central Florida ahead of the 2025 season. If you like this content, please subscribe, leave a like. Those two things help a small channel like this a ton. Thank you if you've done that. If you have any feedback on Central Florida or anything else, recommendations, just let me know in the comments. It is much appreciated. Let's take a look back at Central Florida before we look forward this year. It was a disappointing season. They finished 4-8. They have the coaching change. A little surprised Gus Malzahn left for Florida State to be the offensive coordinator. Have to speculate that the state of college football has something to do with that. Also wonder if they hadn't won a few more games and reached a bowl, if maybe he's still here. I mean, they had a lot of single-digit losses to Cincinnati, Iowa State, semi-close loss, a single-digit loss to Arizona State. They were in the game against Utah, West Virginia. They were pretty close against Florida as well. They only lost that game by 11 points, and that was on the road. So, I mean, it was not all bad for Central Florida. They were very unlucky in single-digit games, which if you love single-digit games and you love losing them, you're going to love Scott Frost, your new head coach. But it's not as simple as that. Scott Frost obviously has coached here before. He was awesome, especially in their final season together, where he finished undefeated, perfect, 13-0. That was in 2017. He was only here for 2 years before he goes up to Nebraska, finishes 35-38 there. Legendary, horrible record in single-score games. So hopefully they can correct this at some point, because basically they've struggled with this a little bit since the Scott Frost days. But the cupboard is far from bare. As you can see, the efficiency metrics for this team were pretty good. KJ Jefferson didn't quite live up to expectations, and they had to change QBs multiple times through the season. Their pass game was definitely a limitation. You lose Javon Baker the year before, so Kobe Hudson doesn't quite step up. They do the Trent Whitmore thing, the Florida transfer. They're doing it again this year with Marcus Burke. That didn't quite work. They had an awesome run game, though. You can say RJ Harvey, this offensive line, were both elite. Defense was middling. They were up and down. They were actually above average in every single category. But when they faced other high-powered offenses, at times they struggled. So it's a weird transition period for UCF, a team that can clearly acquire talent via recruiting and transfer. They should be towards the top of this conference because of their location in Florida, the hotbed of recruiting, at least one of them in the country. Now we just need to transition this coaching staff over, and let's take a look at their talent acquisition so far. Shouldn't come as no surprise. They didn't retain a lot of the last two classes because of the coaching change. A lot of the good players are with Florida State now. We basically had Malzahn kind of handpicking some of them, Randy Pittman, etc. But we see where this team can get to when they have everything in place. They're only 85th in this year's recruiting class. That's just what happens when you transition coaches. They can climb towards like the top 30, and they have before. They did so under Malzahn. They've taken 4 stars. They'll take 4 stars coming from other high-level programs that maybe aren't quite getting the playing time they want. This is sort of like a sleeping giant program. They can acquire transfers, and they've done that as well. They were 22nd last year. This year, they're 42nd. But again, expecting all this to hopefully improve under Scott Frost in year 2, as we've seen him recruit well with schools like Nebraska, where he brought in plenty of 4 stars. I guess the main thing now is, can we put this on the field? Because Frost has succeeded at this level of competition, but when he stepped up into the Big Ten, it didn't look great. So let's take a look at the 2-deep roster and what to expect. This tool is available in the Discord. The link is below if you were interested. We have the 2-deep players. Transfers are yellow. The school they are in, or the year they are in school, UCF formats this a weird way, so you have it spelled out entirely. Snaps the last 2 years. Recruiting in terms of star ranking, and then a value score, which basically takes a look at your recruitment first. Then the more snaps you've played, the less it looks at recruiting, the more it looks at your on-field play. To transfer laden roster, they have over 40 of them, which brings us to the quarterback position, where they have a couple transfers. Taven Jackson is battling Cam Fancher for the QB1 job, according to reports. Taven Jackson is a former 4-star, began his career with Tennessee, goes to Indiana. He's the brother of Trace Jackson Davis, the basketball star. And he played a little bit there. They decided to add Curtis Rourke to play over Taven Jackson, which is somewhat condemning, but we've seen him play a little bit, including a game last year. His career overall, 61.5% completion percentage, 1,300 yards, that's 7.7 yards per attempt, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 8 big-time throws, 11 turnover-worthy plays. He's a big, not-so-mobile quarterback, only 1.3 yards per carry off 8 sacks. But he's 6'4", 212. He hasn't taken a lot of sacks. His pressure-to-sack ratio is actually at 12%. And he has started 6 games, so he's far from inexperienced. Just not as experienced as his counterpart and who he's battling, Cam Fancher, who's kind of the opposite. He has started a lot. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. First played his 3 years with Marshall before he goes to FAU last year. He has 26 starts, but he's been well below average throughout most of them. His best season came in 23, where he completed 65.5% of his passes for 2,162 yards. That was 7 yards per attempt. But even in that season, 11 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 15 big-time throws, 15 turnover-worthy plays. That was in 23. He took a step back from that last year, where he had 4 big-time throws, 11 turnover-worthy plays. All the efficiency dropped, but he can run 3.7 yards per carry. Unlike Taven Jackson, he's had a problem taking sacks. 22% pressure-to-sack ratio through his career, 43 sacks. I don't know who wins the job, but I would put my money on Taven Jackson. I think he's most likely, but that's not a given. And they still also have Ja'Cory Brown on this roster. He played a little bit for them last year, didn't look great. He's sort of been an afterthought in this committee, but at least you have some experience as a third-string QB on this team. But we'll see what they do. I don't think this offense is going to be particularly dynamic. Scott Frost, I think, is going to call the plays. We didn't mention the coordinators. I guess I should have done that at the beginning, but just briefly, Steve Cooper's the OC. He was a Boise State analyst last year, the main OC in 2023, but he's been on the Frost staff before. If you look through Frost's career, he's mostly been a play caller. He kind of demoted himself at the end of the Nebraska days. But if you look at what Scott Frost does, is you're going to see a lot of tempo. You're going to see a lot of read option stuff. There's a ton of motion, a lot of formation shifts. But I think the offense is going to be pretty run heavy as long as game script permits. And I think both these quarterbacks can execute it, but it's going to be reliant on the run game, which brings me to the running back position. I'll talk Alex Grinch and defense a little bit later. You lose R.J. Harvey. He was the best running back, one of them in the conference, honestly, and he could have honestly just been the overall best RB in the conference. But he was their best player on offense last year, and losing him is tough. To ease the loss, they add Jaden Nixon from Western Michigan. He was previously with Oklahoma State, played quite a bit there as well before he goes down to the MAC, where he really burst onto the scene. 5'10", 185 pounds, 919 rushing yards. That was 6.4 yards per carry, caught 10 passes, averaged 4.5 yards after contact with 34 missed tackles. I think he's going to be working in a committee with Miles Montgomery, who is a former Cincinnati transfer. He's just played behind so many good backs, Corey Kiner, R.J. Harvey at this point. But he's 5'11", 205 pounds. Last year, he had 293 rushing yards. That was 5.7 yards per carry. Through his career, he averages 6.4 yards per carry. So I think he is more than capable of splitting this backfield with Nixon. And I wouldn't be surprised if he honestly leads the backfield. Not by much, but to some degree, it wouldn't surprise me. There's not much depth, at least proven, behind these guys. They have a redshirt freshman in Stacey Gage. They also added a 4-star freshman in Tavion Swint. I think they're both going to get snaps this year. And while this position probably is not going to live up to the R.J. Harvey, high end that we saw last year, it's far from barren. Actually, I kind of like this running back room in a sneaky way this year. Wide receiver, they didn't get a lot. They had to deal with the Xavier Townsend stuff. He plays 4 games, tries to transfer. Yeah, he does transfer. He's at Iowa State now. But that was something that was unexpected. I mean, Kobe Hudson didn't live up to expectations, and that he was expected to after Javon Baker left. So this year, they're going to a lot of transfers. Marcus Burke from Florida, they're doing that thing again after Trent Whittemore failed. So Burke is 6'3", 197. He's a former Florida 4-star. He has 19 catches in his career. He's played 4 years, 270 yards. That's 1.08 yards per route through his career, but I expect he's going to play on the boundary for this team. From there, they bring in Rick Darius Farmer, also known as Ray Farmer. He is 6 feet, 200 pounds. He's a former 4-star. Played 100 snaps with West Virginia last year, only caught 6 passes, but he's probably the slot receiver. He played there 97% of the time with West Virginia. The rest of the group, I think, is a little unknown. There are some other transfer candidates to play the wide receiver 3 role. Dwayne Thomas from Charlotte. He was basically a part-time player down there. So I'm not sure he's a good candidate. He's 5'8", 175. Only 30 catches over the last 2 years. Played in the slot. I don't think he beats out Farmer for that job, but he's at least played a little bit. You bring in DJ Black from Limestone. He is a former South Carolina walk-on who transferred down to D2. He was honorable mention All-American at that level of play, 939 yards. He's 6'2", 185, so he could play the boundary opposite Burke and Farmer in the slot. And then Chris Domerkamp, he's from Chattanooga, 6'1", 187, played with Stonehill before going to Chattanooga last year, only 640 yards. I think he's probably a depth piece. But honestly, if we're looking for true ceiling among UCF wide receivers, I think we have to just look to the 4-stars on the roster. Redshirt freshman Burdell Richardson is there. They have an incoming 4-star in Waden Charles. They're the 2 highest recruits at the position for the program. So between Burke, Farmer, and then the freshmen, Richardson and Charles, you have 4-4-stars on this team. Plus, there's a couple pretty highly recruited 3-stars. Jordan Bridgewater's in his second year. Carl Jenkins Jr. and Santoyo Isaac are freshmen. This depth chart is wide open, so I wouldn't even be surprised to see one of the 3-stars potentially climb up the depth chart too. And honestly, this unit, if it hits its ceiling, is probably a lot better than last year's. The floor is lower just because so much of it is young, unproven, or from the FCS. But I mean, there's a chance this receiving unit is better than we think. There is talent in this group. There's 4-4-stars on the roster. Tight end, I'm a little less optimistic. Randy Pittman was awesome for this team. He's at Florida State. Now he follows Malzahn. The rest of the position is inexperienced. They add a couple of transfers in Dylan Wade from Maryland, Max Drag from Appalachian State. Wade is probably your tight end one. He's 6'2", 240, 29 catches, 374 yards. Played in and out of the slot. He is a little below average as a blocker, but that's not why you're using him. He's a better receiver than a blocker. Drag, I don't think plays much. He played 133 snaps with App State. 1 catch, not a good blocker. And honestly, there are some incumbents that can probably just beat him out based on talent. Kylan Fox is a sophomore 4-star. He played 29 snaps last year. He's 6'4", 230. I think he's going to play right away. And then Grant Stevens even played a little bit. I think he's probably going to play ahead of Drag. So the tight end position maybe doesn't have that one name like Pittman, but I think they can more than piece together this unit. The biggest concern with the offense outside of QB, but again, QB wasn't great last year. The offensive line is the biggest concern. They lose their entire unit except their right tackle, Paul Rubelt, who was awesome. 16 pressures, good run blocker. They've been dabbling with him at left tackle this spring. He's going to play one of the tackle positions. I'm just not sure which one it is. Last year he played right tackle. He's a fantastic place to start. You have one position locked down, but the rest of this is probably going to be a transfer job. At the other tackle position, whether it's right or left, I think Preston Cushman is a good candidate from Ole Miss. 93 snaps for him through his career. He's never a lot of pressure, which is solid. I mean, he's barely played, but he's nearly played 100 snaps without a pressure. That is still pretty good. The other candidates are Owen Spell from Limestone, Connor Meadows from Tennessee State, Justin Royce from Virginia Union. All these guys are super low level. I think they're just depth, and maybe you even see some incumbents on the team from previous recruiting classes jump them. They kind of played the volume game rather than the quality game outside of Cushman. So that's where I think your depth stands at this point for tackle. At guard, they add a guard named Guard Memelar from Washington. Memelar played 520 snaps at left guard last year for Washington, 9 pressures, no sacks. He was good as a pass blocker. His run blocking leaves a little bit to be desired, but he should start. Right guard, I think you see Samford transfer Jabari Brooks. He was sort of one of the crown jewels, allegedly, of last year's recruiting class, but then he didn't really play, only 32 snaps. But he has 2,552 snaps of experience, most of that coming at the FCS level. So he's a candidate. They could see players like Keegan Smith or Shaheem Hill play more. Keegan Smith is a former Central Michigan transfer, another guy who came in last year's class but only got 33 snaps. He played 647 in 2023 with pretty good metrics to his name. They just came in the MAC. Shaheem Hill's a former walk-on. He's been playing with the 2 deep in the spring. I really hope you don't have to see him. That would not be great. And it means some of these other players have failed. But overall guard, I think, in a decent spot. At center, they bring in Carter Miller from Louisiana Monroe, originally of James Madison. He was a good pass blocker. 6 pressures and 714 snaps with Monroe last year. Below average in the run game, but a lot of that was because he had 11 penalties. I mean, if he cleans that up a little bit, it could be much better. The only other candidate to mention is Cameron Kinney. He played 182 snaps at about an average level, played between guard and center last year. The offensive line basically is one cornerstone in Rubelt, and the rest of this is up for grabs. There's almost no question they'll be worse than last year, but how much worse is the real question. Is this an average unit, or do they actually fall below average? I think they're going to come in around average, which should be okay for the offense. Defense. Alex Grinch is the defensive coordinator. We really couldn't find someone better. Positively, Alex Grinch has been a decent DC at times. It's mostly come at lower levels of competition. He's failed mightily when he's had to step up. He was the co-DC of Wisconsin last year. That unit took a big step back. And then most recently, I guess he's infamous for tanking that USC defense and running it into the ground. So coaching staff is a big question on defense. What is Alex Grinch? And sometimes you do see coaches fly too close to the sun. We just talked about West Virginia yesterday. Rich Rodriguez being awesome with West Virginia, then flying too close to the sun with Michigan and failing. We've seen it with, like Brett Bielema is a highly touted coach at this point. He failed at Arkansas. Sometimes there are jobs that are just beyond your means of coaching. Is that what happened with Alex Grinch? Honestly, is that what happened with Scott Frost? I don't know. But the defense is pretty strong. They return a lot of talent on the defensive line, which was one of their better units. Nigel Kelly and Malachi Lawrence are back. Nigel Kelly is awesome. He's a former Miami 4-star. He was the second best defender on the team last year. He's the best returning defender. Decent pass rusher, 23 pressures. But he was really good in run defense. He had 53 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, and 5.5 sacks. Fantastic place to start. His running mate, Malachi Lawrence, is back. He had 28 pressures, 5 sacks on 468 snaps. The reason he's behind Kelly a little bit in overall numbers is he wasn't great in run defense. He only had 15 tackles, 6 missed tackles, so his percentage is pretty high of tackles he had available to him that he missed. But beyond these two, they have a former 4-star in Isaiah Nixon. He's a redshirt freshman now. He had 14 pressures on 195 snaps, good in run defense. Transfer Sincere Edwards comes in from Pittsburgh. A Merrick Kumba comes in from Michigan. Edwards played 349 snaps as a freshman with 18 pressures in good run defense. Kumba is a 3-star with Michigan, only 2 snaps to his name. But, I mean, he's like your 5th edge rusher on paper. This unit is awesome. Inside, they lose all their main contributors from last year, but they do get back John Walker, who missed all of last year with an injury. He played 389 snaps in 2023, 10 pressures, decent run defender. He's 310 pounds, which is solid. They also get back a handful of snaps from Tyreek Robinson, Andrew Rump, and Keyshawn Hudson. But they litter this with transfers as well. Horace Lockett from Georgia Tech. He missed most of last year with an injury, but he was above average in 2023. He's 6'6", 315. They bring in R.J. Jackson from Tulsa. He played 467 snaps last year, largely average. He's a little undersized at 282, but he was a good interior pass rusher. He had 25 pressures. Rodney Laura comes in from North Carolina. He's a 3-star with 34 snaps over the last 2 years. And then they bring in LaFontant. His name is Jefferson LaFontant. He's from Bethune-Cookman. Didn't play a lot down there, so probably just a depth piece. The D-line's pretty good. The edge group, I think, is a little better, but the D-line should be a strength of the defense. At linebacker, they lose their top 5 guys, including their top 2, Deshaun Pace, Ethan Barr, so they're going to be portaling a lot. First guy is Lewis Carter. He's a former Oklahoma 4-star. He has 156 snaps to his name, but he's looked good on a tiny sample. That Oklahoma defense was just awesome, so not the easiest to play there. They also bring in Phil Picciotti from Oklahoma, who has not played yet. He's a 3-star recruit, but he's somebody that could potentially ascend the step chart. They also have a pair of Virginia Tech transfers. Kelly Lawson is the first. He played quite a bit in 2023, 500 snaps to be exact, but he was sort of benched last year, at least demoted is probably the better word. He only played a few snaps, and he was better in 2023. There's no way around it. He made 40 tackles, 3 picks. He does have his weaknesses. That's how you get demoted. So that's at least a concern. From there, Jaden McDonald's the other Virginia Tech transfer. He played 316 snaps in 2023. Took a step back last year as well, but he got hurt in week 2. So it kind of is what it is. The step back is on a small sample. And 23, he made 30 tackles. He was decent in coverage. So he could potentially play. The last guy is Cole Kozlowski from Colgate. He was all Patriot League first team, but really, it took him until his 3rd season to get on the field there. This linebacker room is pretty weak. You've had either players that couldn't get on the field at Oklahoma, no real shame there. Players that were benched at Virginia Tech or hurt, and then an FCS transfer in Kozlowski, who it took a while for him to actually get on the field. I'm a little worried about the linebacker unit. There's no way around it. Defensive back, They lose their top 6, but that's not saying a ton. This was a weaker unit. They were better up front. They do return 4-star Antione Jackson at corner. I think he's a strong candidate to play the boundary. He's played 532 snaps over the last 2 years. Good run defender, but in coverage, he left a little bit to be desired. He allowed 21.6 yards per reception for 4 touchdowns last year. Got to work on the big plays, but he's definitely in the mix. They bring in 3 transfers on the boundary: Jaden Bellamy, DJ Bell, and Isaiah Reed. Bellamy comes from Syracuse. He was a 2-year starter there. Very good defender. I think he's going to start. He had 2 picks, 4 PBUs last year. Bell was a rotational piece with Memphis, but when he played, he was awesome. Only 2 starts last year, but a 43% completion percentage into his coverage, 205 scoreless yards, 1 pick, 3 PBUs. And then Reed is a wild card, Isaiah Reed that is, but he started 4 years at Brown. He was elite, but it was in the Ivy League. 55% completion, 7 picks, 19 PBUs. That's going to have to translate to the Big 12. That's easier said than done. In the slot, they returned Braden Marshall, who started the first 6 games last year. 70% completion for 134 yards, and then was a rotational player after that. He's going to compete with former Ohio State 4-star Jair Brown. He was at LSU last year. Best year came in 2022, where he played 195 snaps. We'll see what we get out of the slot. Maybe they even move a safety down there, because they do return Damari Henderson, who missed all of last year with an injury. In 2023, he played 476 snaps, and he was good. 45 tackles, 65% completion percentage for 250 scoreless yards. I think he's going to start. The other candidate, I think the main one is Philip Dunham from FAU. He started with Indiana in 23, transfers away with the coaching staff change, plays 590 snaps last year with Florida Atlantic, 3rd on the team in tackles, 60% completion percentage allowed, 280 yards, 5 touchdowns, but he had 3 interceptions and 4 PBUs. From there, Jaden Gold comes in from Syracuse. He's a player that only had 92 snaps last year, but that was after he played 303 in 2023. He was pretty average. And finally, Jaden Williams also comes in from FAU. He only played 6 games last year before he got hurt, but he was pretty solid on them. There's a lot of 4-stars in the safety room. They have a sophomore 4-star, 2 of them, Jalen Hayward, Jacob Good. They also have an incoming 4-star, Tony Williams. So safety is pretty deep, and defensive back is better than, I think, last year, but we'll see on that. They had some injuries, played a little bit of musical chairs. I think the defense by far is the better unit of this team compared to the offense. It's just, can we manufacture some form of offense via the run game with a new offensive line, new running backs, a new QB, a lot of new receivers. Everything is new on the offense, so we will see. At kicker, they add No Ruelis from James Madison. He's missed 2 of his 37 extra points. That was last year. He was 16 of 20 on field goals. All of the misses came beyond 40 yards. He was 2 of 4 on 50+, and he was 7 of 11 on 40+. So he was pretty good, but he finished as the 61st most efficient kicker in college football last year. Decent place to start. Let's take a look at the schedule. We already hit the roster in depth. As usual, schedule is going to determine a lot. And with UCF, they start off with 2 cupcakes, Jacksonville State under a new coaching staff, NC-A&T. It's an FCS team. Toughest non-con game is North Carolina, who's sort of in a similar spot, a complete rebuild. Who knows what the Bill Belichick North Carolina is going to look like. But luckily, they get that game at home. Then in the Big 12, the schedule is forgiving. This is one of the easier schedules, in my opinion. They dodge Arizona State, TCU, and Colorado. At the top, they face Texas Tech, Baylor, and Kansas State. Easier games include Kansas, who's changing their entire offense outside of QB. Cincinnati has still been in turmoil since Luke Fickell left. West Virginia has a completely new team with Rich Rodriguez. Houston's in year 2 under Willie Fritz. They should be better, but who knows? Oklahoma State's roster is a complete disaster. And then BYU in a transition year themselves, and who knows what's going on with Retzlaff. I mean, this team could win. On the schedule, there are 2 easy non-con games, and then there's about 6 games where the spread's going to be close. I don't know if they're favored, but Central Florida has 6 conference games that I think are going to be within winning distance. We'll see on the schedule, but I mean, they should win 5 games. They should probably make a bowl. I like this team better than I think some other people, and I think their schedule is quite forgiving. Let me know what you guys think. I'm sure I'll get some disagreement on this, but if there's anything you'd like to say, throw it in the comments, or if there's a recommendation for a team in the future, please leave it. Otherwise, thank you for watching. We will see you guys again soon. Good luck.